Welcome to Leading Indicator, a show by Public.com keeping you informed on financial news and ideas. I'm your host, Kinsey Grant. Today, we are discussing the return of Tesla's Roadster plans and the EV giant's collaboration with SpaceX on the vehicle. Before we get into all of that, there is a ton to uncover, but don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more in-depth interviews that will help keep your portfolio on track. Like I mentioned, big story for anybody who follows Tesla, SpaceX, Elon Musk, or all of the above. So here to unpack it with us is our former Tesla insider, our guest today, Farzad Mesbahi. Farzad, welcome to Leading Indicator. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. I'm excited to get into these topics with you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited too. We've got a lot to talk about. This is some pretty cool, sexy news from Elon Musk, which is not uncommon, but something that, is always fun to talk about. And I want to start with a tweet. An X, whatever you call it. Elon Musk tweeted about the planned return of the electric supercar, the Tesla Roadster second generation, and that the supercar will be a collaboration between Tesla and SpaceX, which are Elon Musk's two most valuable ventures. This is pretty big news. It's really interesting stuff. Some of the tech has just been insane. The response has been really interesting. So Farzad, I would love if you could just break down a little bit, number one, what this joint effort might look like between Tesla and SpaceX, and number two, just the broader context of this announcement, what it means for people who follow Tesla, SpaceX, and Musk.
Sure. Yeah. So the Roadster, a good way to think about it is that it was the first product that Tesla had in its portfolio back in 2008, 2007 that proved that an electric vehicle was viable. And that's what allowed the company to go public. That's what allowed the company to come out with the Model X, with their Model X, and so on and so forth. And then back in 2017, 2018, they first unveiled the second generation Roadster. It was during their semi truck event. Actually, they had it come out from a trailer, and it was a surprise to everybody. It was like, what the hell is going on? And so that's when they first unveiled it. But then COVID happened, supply chain shocks happened, Model 3 and Model Y had demand that was through the roof, and they had to get Cybertruck out the door as well. So I think for the last 6-7 years, the company reprioritized their efforts on the Roadster. And then it sounds like just a couple of days ago, in the middle of the night, after an engineering review on Twitter or X, Elon came out and was like, hey, guess what? We upped the metrics, and now this thing is slated to, so I think he said that they're going to try to re-unveil it again at the end of this year, with getting it out the door sometime next year. And then the thought process here is that this car is going to have performance that's going to be way beyond what a normal person would even consider to have in their car. I think it's going to be just a showcase, a halo type of product to try and continue to prove that Tesla not only makes some of the best, if not the best EVs, but electric vehicles are it. And that gas cars are there's just no match, right? And the SpaceX collaboration obviously is a very exciting one, because then they can bring rocket technology over to a car, which sounds absolutely insane. And who would ever want that? I'm sure somebody wants it out there. But then as far as as far as thinking about it from a product portfolio perspective, it's definitely the cherry on top. Elon Musk has referred to it as the cherry on top. It's probably going to be a fraction of a percent of yearly sales for the company long term, but it's a fun thing, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about there. It's like, okay, Tesla is now focusing on a fun thing, which implies other things about their other plans as well. But that's how I would think about it. Is cherry on top, super fun, bananas. You're going to throw up when you drive the car. It's pretty American. Sounds great. Why not? Let's all get one.
Yeah, absolutely. Powerful cars, powerful people. Totally.
Yeah, let's do it.
And, one of the things that's interesting to your point about features and things on this car that the average driver will probably never use, but it's just cool that Tesla can make it happen.
Yeah.
Musk said that the car goes from 0 to 60 miles per hour in less than a second, but also that is not even the most interesting part of all of this, not even the most interesting feature. With all of that being said, the collaboration with SpaceX, the fact that this car is going to totally blow expectations out of the water in terms of speed and ability, does that in any way require a little bit of expectation setting on this actually getting delivered in 2025 like expected? To your point, there was already a supply chain issue that set back the Roadster 2.0 when it first was announced. So
Sure.
Talk to me a little bit about how we should expect delivery to actually take place? Is it realistic, or should we kind of, take the Elon Musk approach to when things get delivered?
Yeah. So that's a very tried and true approach where if you hear Elon come out with a timeline, just put an Elon factor on top of it. You know, the only what's interesting is the only product that Tesla has unveiled that was on time or even ahead of schedule was the Model Y. And the Model Y turned out, I mean, it's sold 1.2 million cars last year, 20% more than the Corolla, and the Corolla was half the price in way more markets. But so I would put that factor on the Roadster. He says end of next year for deliveries. 2026-ish, we can count on it probably starting to appear on the roads. But it is, I think the important thing to keep in mind with that car is that it is going to be very low numbers. It's probably going to be, if I were to guess, I would be surprised if they make maybe more than 10,000 of them a year. And that might be too much, honestly, just because, you think about it from a price bracket perspective, it's probably going to be at least $250,000. I don't know very many people that can afford a $250,000 car, let alone a $50,000 car, right? So this is marketed to a very niche clientele. But it's going to be one of those things where the car is going to be on the road. It's going to blow people's minds. It's going to, kill everybody off the light. And I think the overarching premise here is that you can buy an electric vehicle that can have significantly better stats than a competing gas car. But it's going to be at the fraction of the cost. So, if you put it side by side to say like a Bugatti, or a Koenigsegg or a Ferrari, these types of hypercars, a Pagani, these cars are in the millions of dollars. So, but their performance will not be able to theoretically match the Roadsters because it's borrowing rocket technology, which will allow it to have things like better downforce, better acceleration, better stopping power, right? But they'll be able to do it at 250,000, 300,000, even 500,000, right? I mean, and then that shows the gap of technologies. Like, hey, EVs are clearly better. Let's not forget, y'all. We need to get this thing rolling, right? And I think that's the premise behind the vehicle long term.
Yeah, it's a really interesting reality that a $250,000 car is actually a bargain in this case, compared to some of the other supercars that we're talking about in even the same echelon. One thing that I think is really interesting to sort of pull at this thread a little bit more is the collaboration between SpaceX and between Tesla. Yeah. Obviously, there's going to be some crazy tech. We're talking like rockets and cars come together in some sort of crazy, who knows what it looks like, Roadster. But talk to me a little bit about the business perspective. What are your thoughts on why it makes sense for SpaceX and for Tesla to come together to work on something? If you're Elon Musk looking at your portfolio, why do this?
That's such a great question. I think the overarching premise here is that if you look at the Tesla and SpaceX talent and what they're able to pull, there's countless studies out there that show that engineers coming out of school, like, where do you want to go most to go work? Like, the most talented engineers, number one, number two, Tesla, SpaceX. I mean, on basically every list. And so the thought process there is, okay, so I have this embarrassment of riches when it comes to talent. And if you think about manufacturing, both companies are experts in manufacturing. It's just one is manufacturing things that put people and things in space, and the other one is getting people around the Earth, right? But it's still manufacturing. And there's going to be processes and technologies that you can probably borrow between the two companies. It's just you don't know that are there unless you actually get people to be exposed to the things. And then potentially someone's going to be like, holy crap, we use this part of this process on our rocket engine manufacturing process, or for the rocket to be more stable. This could totally work on a car. So like a perfect example of this is for the rockets that SpaceX has on the Falcon 9, they have these grid fins that help the rocket stabilize itself coming down when it's being reused, when it's coming back down and landing on the launch pad. They use Model 3 engines, Model 3 motors to keep those fins, right? So then they found a way to leverage their existing supply chain from the Tesla side and the technology they have to, save cost. They understand the reliability, they understand the performance. And when it comes to rocketry, one of the things that comes at a premium is making sure that the thing doesn't blow up, because it's hard. That's why it's called rocket science, right? So, but then the opposite can be true. So when you're talking about rockets, what are rockets? They are extremely high performance physical vehicles. I mean, these things are, if you think about the physics of a thing that's the height of a skyscraper going into freaking space at faster than the speed of sound. Like, what is that? I don't even know what that feels like, right? It's freaking insanity. So you could probably make an assumption that whatever technologies are using there to make that happen, it's probably pretty good stuff. And if you get it into a car, so what are the things you're going to gain from that? You're going to get reliability, because those parts need to survive extremely high forces and really weird physical things that you just don't get at sea level. And the other thing you're going to get is performance, so reliability and performance. Gee, I wonder what kind of technology would really benefit from that. Oh, cars. Okay, that sounds pretty good, right? And so I think that's where Elon Musk is uniquely positioned to leverage the talent he has at both companies, because they both happen to be in manufacturing. And it could also be that the Roadster becomes a test bed for some of those long-term technologies. It could start with cold gas thrusters, which I don't know why you would put that on a regular car. You're just adding additional costs for like no reason. But maybe in getting that ball rolling and getting those teams to work together, maybe, like a perfect example of this is the stainless steel that the Cybertruck uses is very similar to the stainless steel that the Starship uses for SpaceX. So the body that SpaceX is going to use for their next generation rocket is the same freaking thing that the Cybertruck's using for its body. Mm-hmm. So, okay, cool. So now you have the ability to have two companies leverage the same supply chain, which brings down costs, increases expertise. You can share process improvement ideas between the two companies. And, I think it's probably just a test bed. Cybertruck Roadster become the test beds to understand how to create synergies between the two companies. And then that could lead, that could lead to technologies that right now we don't understand how to put into a car. And then maybe in 5 years' time, it's like, okay, why isn't everybody doing this? And Tesla and SpaceX will be uniquely positioned to take advantage of those marriages.
Right. Yeah, it's a really interesting point. And I think the idea that this is sort of a way to test out new technologies is really compelling. Sure. One thing that I'm curious to hear your perspective on is this idea that we're essentially rocketifying an electric vehicle, knowing that electric vehicles are, according to a lot of people in the automotive space, this is the future. This is the direction in which we're heading. We're going toward battery and electric powered vehicles. Combustible engines are kind of a thing of the past, or they will be soon. But the adoption has been slower than a lot of people initially anticipated. A lot of really smart business leaders, many of the big three in Detroit, kind of overextended their investment in EVs, thinking that the adoption would happen faster. What does something like this, creating a really, really sexy, cool rocket ship car, the Roadster 2.0, what does this do, in your view, for long-term adoption of EVs for everybody? Tesla has played a pretty significant role in that EV adoption. Does this move the needle at all?
So I would argue that the rhetoric of EV adoption is slowing down is directly counter to the same parties that were saying 10 years ago that EVs are not a thing. It's the same people that are saying this. What a shocking thing, right? It's the same exact people that 10 years ago were like, nobody wants an EV. And then Tesla proves that people want EVs. And then they're scrambling to get into it, right? And then what's happening now is you have players that make inferior EVs. They are the ones that are not really the ones that are selling. And so the argument becomes, okay, well, now you have Tesla that's slowing down their sales. They were growing 89% a year, 60% a year, 50% a year. And now they're saying they might grow 10, 20, 50, whatever, 15% per year in 2024 and 2025. I'm like, that might be the case, but how many EVs do they sell? They sell 2 million EVs per year. How many does Ford sell? Like 100,000? Right? How many does GM sell? Like 50,000? So the rhetoric from these, I don't buy it. I just think they are in a situation where they do not have a compelling electric vehicle. If you compare January sales data in 2024 of EVs versus 2023, EV sales are up 60% globally. Why don't they talk about that? Because they don't have the product. They're the ones that are stuck without the product, right? And so the Roadster, I think, adds another point there that says, okay, unless you have the product expertise and you have the ability to create EVs that people want, you're not going to be successful long term, because it truly is a very competitive landscape if you are a legacy automaker. That's the problem. Like they're saying, the common rhetoric I hear is like, well, there's a lot of competition coming for Tesla. What I would argue is that the competition is for all legacy automakers, because their existing technology is getting displaced fully. And if you view it through their lens, what's making money for legacy automakers right now? Gas cars. What is losing money right now for them? Electric vehicles. and that those losses are accelerating. And that technology will displace your money-making business if you go hard into it. So then if you are a board member at GM, Ford, Volkswagen, so on and so forth, and you're looking at the numbers and you're like, okay, I can't compete on price because I don't have the supply chain or the expertise or culture that I need. And my losses are accelerating the more money I put into it. And the more money I put into it will get me less sales from the gas perspective, which makes my losses even bigger. And I have this investor base that's depending on me for dividends and buybacks, which I won't be able to fulfill because I'm going to be in the negative cash flow territory if I keep investing in EVs. So am I really going to tell people that EVs are the future? No. I'm going to say, oh, it's slowing down. You should probably buy a hybrid instead. It's very obvious when you look at their financials, in my opinion. So I think what's going to end up happening here, and this is just a prediction. I could be 100% wrong. Obviously, I don't want anyone making any financials decision on this whatsoever. But I do think where we're going is we're going to see a push from legacy automakers to get into hybrid vehicles to try and close the gap between the sales of EVs and gas cars, because they know how to build gas cars at a profit. The problem with hybrids, though, is that you have two different drivetrains that are being married up, which increases cost and increases complexity. Versus electric vehicles, if you fast forward 2-3 years with the release of a $25,000 compact car from Tesla, with the Chinese automakers like BYD, XPeng, Li Auto continuing to grow dramatically in their home countries and expanding to the global market as well. All these companies are going to have truly affordable electric vehicles that are going to win on price. They're going to win on safety. They're going to win on performance. They're going to win on ecosystem. They're going to win on software. And now the legacy automaker is going to have to go up against that. Right. So I foresee that being the dynamic. So I would turn around and say, I'm really concerned about gas cars, because if you look at sales from 2017 to now, it's just been a line down for as far as how many gas cars are out in the market. And the reason why is because these companies can't make a profit with an affordable gas car because they've had 100 years of costs piled on and 100 years of management being layered on top of each other. And now you have this disruptive technology in EVs that's completely rewriting what it means to have a transportation unit. So my pushback is those guys need to be concerned, not electric vehicle makers.
Yeah, it's a really interesting perspective. And I think, to your point, highlights the new competitive field is not necessarily, it looks very little like the competitive field that we had even, 10, 15 years ago. So with that in mind, one last thing I want to just get your perspective on is this sort of new era of competition that Tesla might be up against with the Roadster. And I asked this specifically because BYD very recently debuted its own supercar, a $233,000 U9. It can hit speeds similar to high-end models. We're talking like a Ferrari style supercar that is slated for delivery to customers this summer. And I don't know when, worth noting, I guess, but BYD sold more EVs than Tesla in Q4 of last year.
Sure
what does the competitive field look like here? Do you think that this is a motivating factor for Tesla and SpaceX to get this on the road faster without that Elon Musk factor?
Maybe. Yeah, it could definitely be. I mean, I think the company has been very vocal in the past saying that their competitors by far are the Chinese automakers. It's not the legacy automakers in the Western societies. It's your Chinese automakers that are, if you look at the landscape there, I actually have a friend there right now that's visiting. He's getting married and his fiance is Chinese and he's like in China for the first time. And he's like, dude, I can't believe how much these Chinese automakers are copying Tesla, right? Mm-hmm. Like they have like $30,000 cars with gullwing doors like the Model X. Half the cars, I can't tell if they look like a Model 3, if it's a Model 3 or not a Model 3. And the Chinese automakers are taking that extremely seriously because they see a formula. They saw Tesla come into the country in 2019, the first company ever that had the ability to have 100% ownership of a company while in China versus what every other international company has to do, which is have 50-50 ownership with the Chinese government. Basically, they have to have a partner. Tesla was the first one to come in and say, yo, check this out. We can operate here on our own, and the Chinese government trusts us to do that. So, and that's for a reason. Is because China wanted a player in there that shows, yo, look at what the Americans are doing. We need to step our game up, right? And it's a great thing that exists, and I'm very happy that that's what's happening. But on the flip side, again, I bring it back to legacy automakers. Who suffers the most from this? Legacy automakers. Tesla and the Chinese companies selling electric vehicles into a total addressable market of 1.4 billion cars when we only have maybe like 50 million EVs on the road. You have 98% adoption yet to go. Right. So if you're making a compelling EV, you're going to win. You will win, especially if you can make it profitably. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's a good thing. And then these guys are going to fight against each other. BYD, Tesla, Li Auto, XPeng, all these guys are going to figure out how to get better and better. And the ones that are going to continue to fall behind are GM, Ford, Volkswagen, Stellantis, Mercedes, BMW, Toyota, Honda. These are the guys that are going to suffer from this mainly. So that's how I view it. I could be wrong, but I think, again, the competition question is less about what happens to Tesla, but more about what happens to legacy automakers that don't have compelling electric vehicles.
Yeah. And a really wonderful note to end this on, to really kind of look ahead to the future and understand what the competitive landscape is going to look like.
Sure.
You know, we started this conversation by talking about a really sexy, cool announcement, but I think it's a wonderful way to come full circle to understand that this is about more than just the second generation Roadster. We're talking about a total upheaval of how we get from place to place. And the tech like this that we're talking about today is kind of what gets us there, gets us from point A to point B. So
Sure
I've really loved understanding your perspective, Farzad. It's been wonderful talking to you today. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Kinsey. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure every time I'm on. And yeah, I look forward to the next time. Thank you so much.